we will see delayering of organizations. We will see larger span under managers, but we will see demand for even more complex people management because it's more virtual, mixed, hybrid.
When we say our managers are getting younger, I don't think there's any doubt that the younger generation is also extremely smart. I don't believe the generation before would have ever had as much exposure, at the same time as much ability to deal with the problems as this younger generation does. So my question always is, then why not the younger managers, right? For me, the transformation has to be something that marries into your organization's core essence of why we exist. And I think that is one area where also, what role can technology play will be a very interesting thing for us to learn about, and see how exactly can technology help us to get a better understanding of the permeation of culture within the organization.
Hello and welcome everyone to this brand new episode of our special series HR Revolution Perspectives 2023 Experts Take, presented by People Matters in association with Darwin Box. I'm your host Pallavi. Through this exclusive series, we will delve into conversations with top CHROs and thinking minds from the people and work landscape across Asia. The series builds on insights from the HR Revolution Perspectives 2023 Empower and Evolve research study, which is one of the largest workplace transformation studies in Asia. Through responses gathered from over 2,000 HR practitioners and 1,200 plus employees, the trends and the insights captured in this report paint an in-depth picture of what companies and employees demand today. We look forward to exciting conversations with top leaders to get their perspective on the top trends we are seeing from the research and understand from them some of the strategies that they will be adopting to drive their business forward in a year that forecasts growth and innovation. In today's episode, we have with us Sonia Kutty, Vice President Global Human Resources, Quest Global. Sonia is passionate about people with proven expertise in leading multi-country, multicultural teams. For the past 2 decades, she's been instrumental in enabling growth and driving change in a fast-paced work environment. Welcome, Sonia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pallavi.
Also joining us for this conversation is Ashwat Kumar, Senior VP Global Customer Success and Delivery, Darwin Box, a leader with over 2 decades of multi-geographical, multicultural experience in aiding organizations achieve their HR digital transformation successfully. Ashwat has been at the forefront of several trend shifts in HR. At Darwin Box, he helps accelerate the drive to value realization for large and medium enterprise customers, building the leading HCM provider's reputation as a trusted advisor for its 600 plus customers and accelerate company's global expansion. A very warm welcome, Ashwat.
Thank you, Pallavi. Look forward to this discussion.
And to take us further through the findings of the report, I would now like to hand over the mic to Ashwat, who will delve deeper into the trends that are shaping the talent landscape, followed by an interesting conversation with Sonia. We're looking forward to a great, insightful conversation. Over to you, Ashwat.
Thank you, Pallavi. So, Sonia, with your permission, what I will do a brief sharing of the insights, and post that we'll get into picking your mind around your thoughts on some of the key topics and so on. As Pallavi shared before, this is already one of the largest study of its kind in the region. And as you look at the top trends or insights, the first thing which emerges is the fact that all organizations with their DNA or emergence out of Asia, if you come to think of it, are forging totally new paths, because a lot of things which have been done before do not apply to the region, primarily because of the continued pace of growth. Even today, when you look at the feedback from leaders, leaders are thinking of overall growth. And this growth is across different dimensions. It's about revenue growth, it's about sustained profitability growth, it's growth driving organic channel, it's also growth through inorganic efforts. And having said that, there is an interesting tempering of caution on headcount. So if you look at the overall growth perspective and look at the exuberance around headcount growth, that's lower. And this connects to some of the other concerns in the report around increased talent cost. And hence there is this whole caution from leaders of growing and pushing all levers of growth while driving productivity. Emergence of ESG is aligned to global themes. but it's actually emerging fairly fast. So think of it coming as a top driver. And when if you go back 3, 4, 5 years back, it was not really a local big team. Obviously, in industries which are connected and serve global clientele, it was very much a theme. Now across the board, ESG is a top theme, and that's something which will only gain traction and momentum. So think of overall canvas, which is all about growth, and then link to that, think of leaders mindset of things which they are concerned about, which will potentially pull them back. Some of the things are really continuing themes around critical skills, leadership pipeline, developing capability for critical roles, and they have been there as top bottlenecks to growth, not only in the region but globally, for many years in past. But interestingly, linked to that, there are emergence of skills which connect to how of org change. So think about adopting to new digital ways of working, aligning with the pace of innovation, the whole org change around that. Also, the whole piece around employee experience, culture. These are all elements which talks to the concerns around how do you build org agility, how do you drive org change, and that's a theme which is coming and connecting very strongly with the demands of HR transformation itself. And I'm sure as a leader of a as a business leader who leads HR function, you will be seeing that play out in your ongoing interactions with leaders. So that's really the context of how demand from business is changing or is kind of coming to HR. Just to build on another dimension of demand, think of how employees expectations from employers are changing, because in this research we also kind of built that perspective. And some of the expected uh, expectations from employer, whether it's around work life balance, uh, leadership quality, this whole sense of purpose, have remained there, and some of them have even gained more traction. And both work life balance and flexible work environment remains theme. And when it comes to some of these themes, obviously, not all organizations can pitch all of this as something which is a real promise, and that's where there is a need for stronger talent segmentation. But the things which are more interesting to me are emergence of some of the bottom items, because these are also top 6, 7 items. If you think of it, pay and benefits were never that strong an item, and it has come to the fore. That also talks to multiple challenges. It talks to the challenge of obviously the whole financial insecurity, the whole more than wage inflation, the living expense inflation. COVID has put a premiere on benefits. And interestingly, the work space has lost and investment in digital tools has gained. So it's an interesting flip happening here, where employees are connecting flexibility of work with the quality of digital tooling enabling, connecting to their experience as an employee and connect to the employer, versus the most swanky workspace, which was a big pull in past, because they are not spending that much time in workspace itself, even as now companies are bringing employees back to work to new hybrid models and all. So there is this opportunity to balance this out. Some of it will also connect to cost savings, as for example, think of industries, infra can get sweated more and so on. But it means newer and better investments in digital tools, not only around specific tech, but also a lot of collaboration and work tools, which many of the companies are doing and so on. So that really encapsulates two kinds of demands coming to HR. I will take couple of minutes and really bring out the change happening around the theme of transformation itself. So if you think of the whole change around the theme of transformation, the big change which is happening is obviously there is still expectation around HR to deliver for HR, which is consolidate technology, integrate process, improve quality of HR services. But there, the biggest demand is around enhancing employee experience, empowering the manager and the frontline staff, and really create this whole capability in HR organization itself to respond to business needs. And this talks to the theme where organizations see lot of changes and pivots happening in business, and it needs both an organization which itself is agile, and it needs an HR function which is ready to deliver org change. And then that's where this whole shift in what will be defined as successes out of HR transformation, it has been happening for some time, and but now it's very marked because on a large respondent base, this data is coming through. There are set of responses around how mature organizations differ from the rest. I will just use one slide here, and this encapsulates many things together. As you think of organizations, how they think of their HR operations, their technology, and delivering both for business and for employees on employee experience, organizations who are in control. And there I will say organizations who have thought through their HR tech and HR operations strategy well and are executing to that. There also there is a smaller subsegment who have achieved success on that and they are satisfied with it. And this does not talk to one tech versus other or one strategy versus other, because broadly all your choices could lead you to success with different level of efforts needed, obviously. Those organizations tend to outperform rest on everything else. And the insight there is when you are able to control fires and you are able to be predictable in your outcomes, what it does is you are not getting pulled into unknowns or crisis on an everyday basis. And hence, HR is able to impact many more dimensions and aspects when it comes to from a business ask or from an employee experience perspective. And that's where you will see these organizations consistently outperforming on all dimensions while others are struggling, because then what happens, any bandwidth in HR is less bandwidth because you have to adjust and react to fires, and hence you are prioritizing even among strategic outcomes few things which you will impact. And that's what will come through in multiple sections of the report. I will not spend much time there. And just last point from my side is we have done a lot of data around experience and kind of differences in experience expectations from different demographics. And as you look at the details, there are some differences. But the key takeaway is even if you go to boomers, there is an expectation on experience, which itself needs to be considered. So the fundamental point is, as psychographics, all of us have changed. Even I, as an employee or a consumer, I am not same today as I was 20 years back. So today my expectation on experience is more elevated and different from my employer. And that's the fundamental change. Obviously, then, as we look at generations and more younger generations, they seem to be less patient, and that comes through where I will say as you go to older demographics, there is more willingness to listen and make it happen, while youngsters will want it out of the gate. So that's the fundamental difference. But when it comes to expectations on experience, it's changing for all, and everyone wants a different set of newer age experience and so on. NPS on technology, Sonia, as expected, is low. Leaders tend to do better, and that's also a factor of their discipline of execution tends to drive and make things work versus average or laggards where it's really bad. It's also a factor of lot of mis-selling in the market, and people buying into the hype without questioning their own readiness around various things. And that's where, if you think of lower NPS, it is even more skewed when it comes to talent management, learning, and some of those aspects of technology, which are more important from engagement perspective than really executing transactions. the core strategy going forward will be consolidation. People will try to create lower platform options where possible, and that's the dominant strategy. Uh, I will close here and close with the fact that as we look at the whole research and look at the connects, there is more demand around org agility. Org agility has a natural connect through the experience we create for employees, because experience alters belief and changes behaviors. And that's where, in a way, HR is the custodian of driving the whole org agility itself for business leaders. So that's really is what encapsulates many of the insights for us from this research. Sonia, any comment from you before I get on to picking your mind around specific aspects of the research? So look forward to your comment, and then we'll get on to asking questions which will inform us even more about different aspects emerging from this research.
And thank you, Shashwat. Appreciate you taking me through the report and giving me those insights into it. I thought some aspects were very insightful, right? I think heuristically, we often talk about the changes that have come about in the workforce, how people are thinking, how expectations have changed. But it's great to have that validated through data, specifically coming out of your research. So I thought it was very very insightful, especially the point that you mentioned about pay and benefits kind of coming on top, expectation on digital and technology kind of coming onto the forefront. I think if I had to make those guesses, maybe I would have thought that these are things that are more critical to people. But it's really good to have that validated through research. So congratulations! It looks like a fantastic report. I will definitely spend some time going into it in detail.
Thanks, Sonia. So love to hear your feedback more on that, and
Mhm.
happy to unpack deeper data on this. So you are right. Some of these are themes which kind of I will say you will grapple with daily. So that's where I will kind of unpack the first question for you,
Sure.
because business will have this constant hunger for growth
Yeah.
and obviously need for talent, and balancing it with a wage bill growth which is not growing at the same pace, while the skill premium in the market is going up dramatically for the skills which you need. How do you balance and make this challenge work? Because as we look at it, and even as the data suggests, this divergence will increase, where businesses will want to grow faster, will want to also commit to higher profitability growth, and talent has choices when it comes to, people talk of recession and all, but the real talent which is needed seem to have choice all the time.
Mhm.
And so how do you balance that?
Um, Fantastic. And I think that is something that businesses are grappling across the board, Shashwat. There's no doubt about it. The whole 2020 and that what followed in 2021 was like a complete escalation with respect to cost and models that were there with respect to human capital value, etc. Right? And what has been created today is of our own doing to a certain extent, right? Because there was no talent available. There was such a need for talent that emerged in 2021 that obviously there was that cost escalation that happened. My belief is that businesses are also pretty ingenuous. They have a lot of ingenuity, let me put it that way, right? When it comes to solving a problem. So today, I think we're at that point where we are faced with a problem and then we have to look at a solution. Um, what I believe will happen is that these models of business will change over time. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but it is going to change. And these tempering with respect to business will also have a say in how we actually balance what has happened over the last 2 years. What I mean by that is, if you look at the entire recessionary situation that has come into the market as of now, that has led to a little bit of tempering in terms of both the workforce expectations and in terms of what businesses are out there to pay, to support, to do, right? So that that in essence is a tempering that is happening within the larger economic scenario, right? I'm sure the growth will again come in. There's no doubt about that. And again, this cycle will repeat. But I think, and I see this in my own companies, how we will then fuel talent and how that will happen with respect to those key top talent that is required for any business. And you have others who need to also support is going to be a balance act that every organization will find a means of doing.
Yeah.
Okay. You will have those cost pressures because there is definitely going to be a ceiling into how much a customer is willing to pay you for a certain service or for a certain skill, right? And I think hence it will become more about what kind of innovative thoughts, practices, techniques you have to kind of provide the same service, but kind of balance it out with respect to different talent. Let me say proficiencies. Okay, because you have to pay for a certain proficiency, you may be able to balance it, which is where how you train, how you make your capability build up in the organization, and from where you build that up may be the answer to the solution. I have no doubt businesses will find their answer to that, Shashwat.
Yeah. So in fact, thanks, Sonia. This is great points here, and you are kind of giving me segue to my next question,
Sure.
because you talked about business models will evolve and change. Now you put that against the current feedback on both capability and critical roles,
Mm,
and the ways of working, which are, so these are the three concerns coming in big themes.
right.
And as you rightly pointed out, as business models change, and as you think with more digital, we are bringing more complexity under, I will say, even younger managers and empowered managers. So both these themes or concerns will only amplify.
Mm,
So how do you get ready to manage that? Because the reality is we'll see delayering of organizations, we will see larger span under managers, but we'll see demand for even more complex people management because it's more virtual, mixed, hybrid, and it will talk to both capability and ways of working.
correct.
So how do you deliver that? And it's interesting because in your kind of organization, it's even more true because as you do lot of engineering work, it demands greater collaboration around skill areas.
Absolutely.
So how do you see this kind of getting addressed?
Um, you are spot on, Shashwat, and while I speak for my organization, I'm sure this is true for majority out there, right? There is the complexity of a very different workforce dynamics that's playing out over there. You also have a very diverse workforce that has come in, both in terms of the diversity, both in terms of the different age groups, the kind of people who are there in the workforce. So then the complexity definitely is a notch above than we have ever experienced. And that couple that up with, like you said, managers are younger. The needs are very different for people who are in the workforce, and hence managing that. The ways of working is also different. So definitely, it's like that classic problem that you have, and what you need is to kind of then get the genie out of the bottle to give you a solution, so as to speak. Um, for us, I think it's also a mindset, I believe, Shashwat, right? So when we say our managers are getting younger, I don't think there's any doubt that the younger generation is also extremely smart. Okay, and that they do have the solutions to find, if you look at your own children, right, who are much younger, I don't believe the generation before would have ever had as much exposure, at the same time as much ability to deal with the problems as this younger generation does. So my question always is, then why not the younger managers, right? There is an aspect of experience, but I think when you marry that with technology, when you marry that with how they manage and their perception about the world view of things, I think younger managers are also a good thing to channel into and to provide solutions. Okay. So while we have a complex problem, I think the solution also lies in our, when I say our, sometimes we are very traditional in our approach and thought process, but I think if you kind of become a little bit open to that, the solutions are also pretty much over there. It's only about making it A, accessible, B, giving them the trust and confidence that is needed, and providing those experiences which will then enhance them is what is required to kind of bridge that gap between what your reality in the workplace is and what you need to manage it. That is my view, Shashwat, in terms of where we are. I don't think we can change that. It is what it is, and it is going to be this way.
So, in fact, this I am talking to my own experience doing HRT for longest possible time, and
Mm,
I did not evolve a lot. I was doing that for 20 years. But you have talked to the theme of empowering frontline and managers and kind of helping them or using them to co-create solutions. So,
that's correct.
if you ask me, that's one of the best ways of succeeding with transformations. So
Absolutely.
that gets to the next question, and then that's a great opening there. That's the ask which business leaders are asking for, and on HR transformation, and it's common because come to think, put yourself in the shoe of your CEO. He or she is now seeing so many transformation initiatives on in the organization.
True.
And all of them come and boil back to org capability, people capability, behavior change, culture change, and so on. So fundamentally, all of them turn out to be HR and organization and behavior issues. So
Correct.
all of them are items which Sonia should be delivering. And that's where the need for HR to come to the table or come to the party.
Yeah,
So, how do you deal with that? Because everyone in their functions may have started a transformation thinking it's their agenda, but fundamentally it becomes a people agenda.
that's
And,
true.
and that's where HR transformation needs are changing. So,
Right.
how do you do that, which is obviously running HR itself, but then also enabling success of all these business initiatives?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you will have enough war stories on this. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And my war cry on this on this war story, Shashwat, is that the people paradigm is not an HR agenda.
yeah,
Okay, I think it's a business agenda, and unless you have all hands on deck, this war nobody is going to win. Right. So I think what I impress, and you're bang on, right? Everything ultimately goes back to the organization, to the culture, to the people. That's where all those things, kind of go back into. And unless we have the larger group of business, the managers, etc., completely involved and buying into the story, that change won't happen. For me, the transformation has to be something that marries into your organization's core essence of why we exist. Okay.
yeah,
Transformation just for the sake of transformation or just to say that, hey, I'm using the latest and the greatest just doesn't make sense. It has to be marrying into why you exist, what is the value that you provide to your customers, and hence, how does the transformation, how does anything that you do in the organization make sense to that is what will give you a true success story.
yeah,
Especially at Quest Global, I don't think we have ever, embraced transformation just because we think, hey, 10 other companies are doing it or that the market's talking about this. This is the buzzword, and hence we should do it. And HR, I think, always has worked with the business leaders in tandem to say why it's important. And the need usually can come anyway, whichever way, whether HR initiates it, whether business initiates it. The idea is really to make sure that it marries into the culture of the organization, what we are doing. It is in line with what the organization philosophy is, and there's a strong business need for why we should adopt it. And quintessentially, it also answers the business question of what's the ROI in it. Okay, unless I have these things tick marked, I wouldn't necessarily go in and lead any transformation unless I have clear answers to this. And I think me having these answers really makes the buy in so much more easier for me as the HR leader and for the organization to completely provide all support to that initiative. Then it becomes a much easier rollout also for us with respect to any transformation that we are doing or any change management that we are trying to orchestrate in the organization.
thanks, Sonia. This is super interesting and I think relevant to the theme itself, because my take is all organizations go through it and larger organizations will experience it even more because the
Correct.
scale and multiplicity of such different initiatives will kind of make amplify this whole piece. So as you think of the whole transformation and then piecing it, because that's top down, and then think of piecing it bottom up, which is the whole old science of EVP to today what is called experience and the whole different pieces around it. And you as an organization do talk about very strong core values, whether it's customer focus, collaboration, integrity. But interestingly, also talk about, I don't know, I read through that it was around individual anchored, which is around aspiration,
Hunger,
humility,
humility.
and hunger. Yeah.
Yes.
So interesting pieces there. So how do you make this come alive on experiences for individual, your learnings from there, and how do you use data to accelerate all of this? So it will be super interesting to learn that.
Yeah, and I don't think we have a bulletproof solution to it. Okay, we are also, I think, learning in the way, especially to your point about how does data support adoption of all this, and what is coming out as value, Shashwat. That's the tricky part of it in this. From a culture standpoint, what you mentioned about aspiration, hunger, humility, collaboration, integrity, customer focus, this is our core. And when we say this is our culture, I think one of the most resounding feedback that we receive from anybody who interacts with us, whether it is customers, whether it is somebody outside the organization, new people who join the organization, is that the culture is very starkly evident. Okay, it's a culture that kind of comes out into the forefront, is there for people to see, to perceive. It's very palpable in the entire organization structure. And we make sure that we also put a lot of emphasis on creating this culture in the organization. We have a chief culture officer in the organization whose mandate is to drive, ensure that culture is there, whether it is our processes, whether it is our practices. It is in everything that we do. Is this something that is resonating with our culture?
Sonia, we
Is
lost
something that we
your
take extra care
voice.
for. Now that's a tricky part. I think what we try and do is to say, okay, if we have any practice that we are putting out there, it usually has some tenor or some linkage into the culture, and trying to see, does it actually serve, and is there a way that we could actually get data, especially meaningful data, to say it's either enhancing the culture, supporting it, or is it not working in favor. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is the way we get it. We also have it as part of our engagement surveys, our dipstick surveys. So culture always forms a part of it, including our feedback channels to say, is this coming through in our culture? If there's any practice that people feel is not in line with the culture, then we take stock of that and try and make a change to that particular practice if it is not in line. That's the way we have. I think we will in some time also, kind of go in for a more full-fledged culture audit just to see how we are measuring up, and then try and see if there has to be any course correction. We've done that in the past as well. So maybe that's something that we will do in the near future in order to see how well and how cued in we are to the culture. And I think that is one area where also, what role can technology play, will be a very interesting thing for us to learn about, and see how exactly can technology help us to get a better understanding of the permeation of culture within the organization. I think would be an area of extreme interest to us.
So maybe that's a discussion we will share what we are kind of thinking there.
Sure.
Because and you have rightly said that culture lives and breathes in the organization. So what we realize is that as a core system of records, we are a horizontal HR stack. One of the best values we can bring to the company is how do we you create a tool which can sense moments.
Hmm.
And the reality is moments or experience mostly happens Sonia offline, not
Yeah.
really on the tool itself. But today, technology is so pervasive that the tool will get a sense of it. A
Hmm.
very simple theme. If we believe we are a caring organization,
Hmm.
tech actually senses the fact that an employee is sick.
Okay.
Uh, if an employee is sick for 3 days,
Right.
can you actually trigger a manager or HR to take some action?
Right.
When an employee is back, can we understand from employee whether he or she felt cared for?
Hmm.
We offer right help. Was it sufficient? Could we have done something differently?
Right.
And to stitch it across all possible moments, whether it's life cycle moments, whether it's created moments, for example, because you wanted someone to feel special, whether
Right.
that emotional response came or not, and bring it back. Then for literally for everything, I can have a metric view. For example, on recruitment, I can also have an experience view. And together, I know my state of recruitment.
Yeah.
So that's the holy grail we have been working on, because that ideally will make the whole data come alive, because you need to be doing it constantly.
Yeah.
Uh, so we'll obviously allow customers to do surveys in the model they use, because that's how people look at engagement. But
Mm.
even if we do engagement once in a while, and the challenge is then manager dashboards and making actions happen.
Mm.
How do you trigger those actions? So
Yeah.
this same approach can allow you to trigger new trails, new journeys, new actions. So it's a, I will say, an emerging experience happening where you are trying to combine multiple possible technologies, but then give it back as a tool to HR, because they will have to discover then the power of it.
True. True.
So
True.
that's something which is a, I guess, a good offline discussion, and we will learn from your insights and your experiences.
Yeah.
Now, as we talk about technology itself, what you have seen worked and what are the biggest roadblocks? Because you are in a sector which I will say is anyhow more intensive.
True.
So what you have experienced is a lot more folks may be experiencing it now or will experience later. So
Right.
how do you summarize your key learnings of what has worked, what has not worked? Today, if you do something, what are the couple of things you will avoid doing altogether?
Right.
That will be very interesting to know.
Yeah. Um, I thought that example that you gave was very good, okay, about somebody being sick and how technology can help. I mean, it's a brilliant way of kind of giving a use case for something that will work. So thank you for that, Shashwat. Technology, it's never been about to do or not to do. From a technology sense, it's something that is a given for us as an organization and for a business as well, because workforce across the world, multiple places, customer sites, etc. So technology is like something that we definitely need, Shashwat. The key thing for us is what to use and when to use it, right? And also maybe how to use it is the other thing. And let me elaborate on that before I go to the awareness piece of it. So, I think for us, we have, and we have done different things when it comes to adoption of technology. But the main core thing is not to do something just because it's out there, or it's a nice thing to have in the organization, but to see what is the value. Okay, and that technology should go hand in hand with our culture and with our organization purpose. I think that's like a blanket foundation for us when it comes to technology. And definitely it should be serving a purpose. It should give us value. I do not want to support something just because it's great to just keep doing it, or it seems to be the right eyeballs on it. I would never want to do something like that. It has to give me a reason and a value to the employees or to organization as a whole. That's the reason that we would adopt technology. Our greatest learnings have been that the planning phase, when you go in to adopt a technology, is really critical. If we can think through and spend that extra time on planning it outright, usually the implementation goes through smoothly. Wherever we have done something on a one-off case where we've kind of been a little bit more pressured for time or made a decision a little bit more hastily, we've seen that it calls for double the amount of effort and time just for the implementation part of it. So that's one learning on the technology front. The other thing is to have a good technology partner, whether it is an external partner who's bringing in that piece for you, or an internal team that is supporting to deploy that technology within the organization. Having a team that's informed, knows where the linkages are, because I think that's where sometimes things go wrong. You don't think of the myriad ways that particular implementation will touch different aspects in the organization, and unless you do that right, you may be ending up with a bigger problem than the one that you're trying to solve. So I think that is another key thing for us, have. And I think we've got a fantastic team on our IT implementation side. They kind of do a very robust job of thinking, and also more important about the awareness part. Shashwat, I've always thought, I know only as much as I know, right? So what about the piece that you don't know? Maybe you're thinking of something as good or as the right thing, but there may be something else out there which you don't know about. That is where having a partner who's doing it with you, right, and thinking and is more aware about what can be done becomes a huge bonus. So I rely a lot on my IT applications leader. He's very well informed, and I have found that whenever we have partnered with a provider or with a partner who is doing it for the benefit rather than just getting a business deal done, that's where we have really had superlative success in the implementation rollout of any technology or even in the adoption of it. So that's my learning on a whole on the technology front.
No, so in fact, very well said, and you kind of put it very nicely, but you address the fact around building a case for change, which is really the whole, there needs to be a business value around it. The whole detailing phase, the discipline around planning. And it's kind of interesting because fast growth organizations tend to undervalue it typically. And that's the biggest mistake because then the whole redo or kind of correcting those mistakes cost way more, and also it makes org lose trust in an initiative which could have given so much more value. And then organizations revisit these initiatives only after certain time. So you have lost really a time opportunity for longest possible time. And also planning phase allows you to land the value right. If you are doing something just for automation, let's not call it a big transformation. Just let's call it automation and get done with that. And the third point which you talked through, which is the whole HR and IT partnership. I think it's overlooked, but to your point around not only for tech which IT deploys, but also or HR deploys for themselves, but also for the larger tech being deployed in the organization where HR needs to enable org change. I think this is one of the most important partnerships going forward because tech and people will intersect more and more. And in that sense, it's a very valid point which you highlighted. So I think those were just the questions from my end, and very useful insights, Sonia. Thanks for that. With that, I any last comments from you, and then we can hand it over to Pallavi.
No, thank you. And, all credit to you, Shashwat. You're a very, you kind of listen very intently. And I thought your replay of what I said was even better than when I said it. So thank you so much for calling it all out. Thank you. Appreciate your time as well.
Thanks, thanks, Sonia. Pallavi, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Sonia and Sashwat, for those wonderful insights. It's always a pleasure listening to global leaders like you and listening to different perspectives. And for everyone who's been watching this interview, thank you again for tuning in. And if you have not yet got a copy of the HR Evolution Perspectives 2023 Empower and Evolve edition of the study, then we request you to click on the link which is provided below this interview to download the copy now. If you want more details on how to automate day-to-day HR processes, steps to simplify human interactions, and getting actionable insights to build workplaces in a better way, you can visit www.darwinbarks.com. With this, we have to wrap up today's interview. Stay tuned in to HR Evolution Perspectives 2023 Experts Take, which is our special series, which we are bringing in with different experts to bring about insights filled with discussions where we break down the important talent trends across India and APAC and deliberate solutions with the top talent leaders in the region. Once again, thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.